Hi everyone, welcome back to the Rise podcast with me, your host, Katie Oman, women's empowerment coach, book coach, author, and all-around kick-ass woman. I started this podcast because I wanted to chat to some really inspirational women. I believe in the power of women. I believe in women's stories, and interviewing these incredible women just gives us a big boost of oomph, which we all need in our daily lives. And I'm really honoured today to be joined by another fabulous woman, Katie Cope, who kindly agreed to come on. I'm just so happy. So, Katie, thank you so much for being with me today.
No problem at all. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome things. So, for those of the world, whoever's watching this, wherever they're watching it, who don't know you, let's start by introducing you, who you are and what you do and all that beautiful stuff.
Yeah, no problem at all. So as Katie said, I am another Katie. So I am Katie and I help female entrepreneurs create and find and embrace their true identities through my business, which is called Keppel Leopard Creative. And I've been running that for now 4.5 years, just over 4.5 years now. And a bit more background from me is I actually come from an events, animation, theatre and film and TV background. So
Wow.
not the background at all that you would normally find with a brand strategist and designer, but the biggest thing that I do is I create stories, and that's the thing that I want to do with my female entrepreneurs. Is we're creating stories and we're putting them out there so that they can share their stories. I am a mum of 2 boys and I am also in Manchester as well. I am a mentor for the Girls Network and I was also a UK delegate for the UN's Women Conference this year as well. So yeah,
Wow.
that's a bit
Like she's like there with the bow and all the strings. Like she's like, this is just everything that I do.
Yeah, this is everything. This is all I've got.
But you know what? Seriously, I love that because I am a multi-passionate person, and those people that are watching this that know me know that very well. I can't just do one thing because I get really like.
No, neither can I. No, exactly. You kind of go.
So my question to you, really, the first question I really want to ask you is, what made you shift? Because it feels like you were on one path and going on a certain direction. So what was the transition from going on this path to moving over onto this one?
Yeah, so I will start sort of like right back at the beginning. So when I started, so way back when I did my degree in animation. So I have a degree, a BA Hons in animation. And at the time when I graduated, suddenly the recession hit, in which it was just like, oh no, there's no animators that are going to hire me, graduate out of uni. And so I'd kind of done a little bit of events and things. I was just like, let's do that. And I am very much one of those people that would just be like, oh, let's try this and see. So I started kind of working and sort of going through events and things and did a little bit more. I did an internship with my university with events. And then my biggest sort of role was I started working at Manchester Central, which is a big venue in the city centre of Manchester. It hosts like the political conferences. So I saw quite a lot of those and I was part of those. So they do big events. So I used to do that, and I used to be the administrator for that in the events management. So I used to look after all their POs, their invoices. I saw a lot of events coming in. I also hosted my own events as well. So I did some events as well. So I managed the largest anti-terrorism training event, which I'm super proud of. It was like the biggest in Europe. It was 800 people at it. It was insane. It was massive, which was really awesome. And then when I was there, I fell pregnant with my eldest and went on maternity leave, came back, and it was kind of one of those where I was just like, my next career stage from being an administrator as an event manager would be become a full event manager. And when you're an event manager, especially when you're doing, so these events would be coming in nightly as well. So we'd have events that would leave during the day and they would come straight through in the night. And so you'd have event managers on there. And it kind of got to the stage where I thought, well, what's going to happen if somebody calls me and says to me, your son is ill, you need to go, but I'm an event manager? I am now then stuck between managing an event or having to call one of my colleagues in to say, you need to cover for me, or between my son. And I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like the feeling of having to have that split decision. And so it's just like, I don't particularly want to have that feeling, and it's probably not the career path for me to go down because it's not going to be the way that I want to go. So then I started thinking, well, what do you want to do? If you don't want to do this and you don't particularly want to stay in the admin side of things, what do you actually want to do? And that was when I was kind of sort of experimenting a little bit more in sort of going back to the creative side of things, because if you are in events, you'll know a lot of it is to do with admin and health and safety. There's no creative side of it. There's no creative side of the managing side of it. So I'm kind of missing that creative side of things. And so I was kind of looking, and I looked at kind of going into graphic design, but a lot of graphic design houses and agencies, they kind of want you to have that degree, which I didn't have that degree. And I was like, I don't really want to go back to uni and study that again. And that kind of made me go on this path of, well, in film and TV, they create loads of like graphics and things, but it's all fake. So as long as you can fake it, it should be fine. And so I went down this route of just having a look and sort of going, could I do this for a job? And could I do this for a living? And every sort of day when I was working in events, every day I used to go to the library. So we were very close to the Manchester City Library, which is this big, massive library. And I used to go every single lunchtime and just pull out books about film, theatre, creating stuff, making things, making design and things. And it was just one day that I was kind of like looking at these things and I was scrolling through my phone, and we've got a big space called Space, and it is basically a studio where they go and film. So they film like Peaky Blinders there, they film the A Word there, they film lots and lots of different productions. And they had this big open call for people to go down and just do like an induction of the crew, because what was happening in the actual industry itself was, with all these kind of Netflix and Apple and Amazon Prime sort of films, they were actually starting to become sort of very mini movie sets, and because of the amount of people that they needed. And they were realizing they were actually running out of people because all the crews were kind of taken, but they had more demand for people. So they actually needed more people coming into the industry. And so they put an open call out. They said, you do not need experience in it. You do not need a degree in it. Just come down, have a look, find out all of these different departments and learn about what these different departments were. So I applied for it, did not think anything of it, because at that point I was, what age was I? 28, 29. So I was quite old to be kind of starting in that industry anyway. So I was just like, there is no way they are going to choose me. And then I got a phone call and they were like, yeah, come down, you've been chosen. And I was just like, well, this is good. So off I popped for a weekend, and I got to know all about the different crews, so like the script writing, the editing. And when I was there, I met a production designer, and that's what the production design do. They're the art department and the production design. This is what they do, is they create all the graphics, they create all the designs, all the sort of things that you will see in either on Netflix or in a film set. And so I literally just went up to her and just word vomited her, this is all the stuff that I can do, here is my portfolio. Look at all these things. And sort of kind of spoke at her. I don't think she got a word in edgeways. And
like,
I kind of,
okay.
exactly. And then she was just like, and I was just like, here it is, here's all my stuff, please keep it, it's got my number on it and everything, anything you want. So I kind of gave that, and sort of, and then she kind of gave me her email address and things. And so then I sort of like was kind of sitting on it, and I was just like, just message her, just see what happens. So I messaged her and was just like, can we meet for a coffee? And she's like, yeah, okay. So we met for a coffee, we had a chat. And then one day out of the blue, she rang me and said, there is a film set that's going to be coming up for, there's a Netflix series called Free Rein, which is a children's program all about horses. In which I talked loads to my friends about it and realized that actually it's aimed at children, so they have no idea what it is, and they're like, oh great. So she said there is this place. I'd already told her that I can't be a runner because runners pay is much lower than the pay that I was already getting. I was like, I have a child, I have a family, I cannot go to runners pay. And she's like, we'd be going to art department assistant, would you like to come on board and become an art department assistant? And then I kind of sat on it and just went, yeah, okay. And so that's how I jumped. So I literally leaped from like my position at Manchester Central was full-time permanent job to a temporary job in which like the set was an hour and a half away. So it was like a 2 and 3 hours drive each way, because I commuted from where I was in Cheshire. So I commuted for like 3 hours a day getting to sets. Which now I look back, I was just like, that was a bit insane.
Just a bit, yeah. Even I'm still a little bit. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So now I look back at it, I was like, yeah, that was a bit insane. You should have So I used to leave at like 5:45 in the morning to get to set for 7. I think at one point I had a crew call at 6 in the morning, so I left at like 5:45 to get there, which just seems insane. And I got to be on set, so I did a lot of graphics on there. I did a lot of we also did like all sorts of things. So at one point I was sewing like a temporary belt for a horse because they needed to practice with a with a balloon. So we had like, and the thing is that sets move so fast, they move incredibly quick. So they were like, can you make this belt in like an hour? And I was just like, yes.
Sure.
Of course, sure, why not? So I made like this belt for like this horse in like an hour and just like fired it over to them. So I did like the Christmas and the Valentine's Day specials, in which we were filming in the heat of summer. So they always do this. It's like the Christmas stuff, it's always filmed in summer. So I think it was like the hottest July that we've ever had, and everybody was in like fur coats, winter coats. There was snow on things, trying to like saw stuff. They're like, we need Christmas stuff. It's like, it's July. Nothing in the shop. So we had to recreate every single thing. We were recreating like Christmas cards, because you're not allowed to use the Christmas cards. Like if you just buy them from the shops, you're not allowed to, because it's copyright. So you got to create your own. So there was like multitude of things that were going on. So I did those things. And one of the things with when I worked there is my production designer in the industry is actually known for being a bully. And I didn't realize this, because I just kind of come into it and just fresh faced and was just like, oh, this is fun. And then I was the 5th person she fired. So there was 5 people before me, in which by that point I was just like, clearly it's not me, love, it's you.
Well, at some point you have to look at yourself and question what you're doing, right?
Exactly. You're just like, really? And I think also at that point, because I was a bit older, I think if I had been sort of just coming out of graduate school and she was doing this to me, I wouldn't have stood it. But it was that one time when she was talking to me, and she actually shouted at me in front of somebody else, and a graphic designer who I really, really love, and he's absolutely amazing. And after she'd done that, he said, like, that was pure bullying. That was not you. There was nothing that you could have done in that situation. That was 100% pure bullying, which kind of validated it a little bit. And I was just like, oh, okay, it's not just me thinking that I'm being oversensitive and I'm just not getting it. It was definitely, this is her. And he said, like, she's known in the industry to be like this. And people know this, which is why she finds it harder to get the crew that she needs, because people know what she's like. And at that point, it's sort of like, that was on a Friday, and so he's just like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know whether I want to leave or I want to sort of like stick it out. And he said, have a think about it, think about what you want to do. And over the weekend I was just like, no, I know that she's been bullying me, so I'm just going to be really annoying and stay until she fires me. And just do everything really well and just with a smile on my face until she has to fire me. And that's exactly what I did. I was just like, yeah, no problem, I'll do this. And it was things like, I knew that she was sort of like, it was getting to her, because it was like, if I asked a question, she'd kind of go, do it the same but differently. And it was kind of like really kind of cryptic sort of ways of talking to me. And I was just like, this is annoying. And I think it frustrated me more, because in that industry, to get to her position, it's really hard to get to a position, especially because she's a female. She would have had to work hard. And like I have always said, and I always maintain, what she created, amazing. It's incredible what she created. Her creativity and her designs and her thinking and her ideas are amazing. Her management skills need a bit of work, and her leadership skills need a bit of work. And that was the only thing. So it got to the point where she did actually fire me. She gave me like a week's worth of pay. At that point she'd brought somebody else in already, in which is kind of like, there's two art design assistants, I kind of know what's going to happen here. But by that point I'd kind of like gone, you know what, I'm the 5th person to fire. It's like, I think really we need to look into ourselves and just find out what's going on with us. So I wasn't as upset about it as I think that I would have been if it had just been a pure shock to me. I kind of sort of made my peace with it. So after that I went back into the events industry and sort of was working for another company that did the organizing side of things. So they made all the stands, they talked to the exhibitors and things and put all the stands together. So I did that, and I did the admin for that a little bit. And when I was there, I fell pregnant with my youngest child. And about, when was it? It was around about sort of April time. So when I was pregnant with my youngest, I suffered from pelvic girdle pain, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically all your ligaments kind of decide to relax too soon. So then everything's kind of not being supported, everything's moving about. So by the end of my pregnancy, I was on crutches, I was on like really high sort of pain meds, and I actually got induced by the end of it because they were just like, you can't go on, let's keep going.
Wow.
Let's do it. So I was kind of suffering from that anyway. And on the day, so I got made redundant from that job whilst I was pregnant. So on that day, I had actually taken the day off because I was trying to get an emergency appointment to the doctor, because I'd got up, I couldn't actually stand up straight, and my husband was just like, are you okay? And I was just like, I'm fine, I'll be all right. And he's just like, yeah, you can't actually stand upright, I think you need to take the day off work. You can't actually physically get to work looking like that. So it's like, okay. So I'd actually taken a day off work so that I could go and get an emergency appointment to increase the pain med so I could go to work. Yeah. And I got a phone call in the afternoon from HR, and they basically said, we're making you redundant, and you'll get like a week's worth of pay, you'll get 8 days holiday pay, and that's it, you're done. And like, so I never got to say like goodbye to my colleagues. They didn't even know that I was going. I had to message them and say like, I'm not coming in anymore, it's just you guys now. It's like, I've been made redundant, there was nothing else, I had nothing. And so like, I had this kind of sort of like, when I was kind of sitting there, I was like, okay, now that I've kind of realized what situation I'm in, I kind of have like sort of two options really. The first option is to try and get another job, in which I was like, right, I'm 7 months pregnant, my experience is in events, which we all know is health and safety. Nobody's going to hire me, especially because I've got medical issues as well, and especially because I'll be going on maternity leave in sort of 3 months, so nobody's going to be hiring me in that position. I was just like, the other option is just to crawl into bed and just kind of hope that it all works out in the end and just let it all blow over. And I'm not that kind of person that will do that. And then I was sort of like, this third wildcard option was, well, you could start a business and see what happens. And like way back in my last year of school, when I was in sixth form, we had done this kind of, I was part of like the Young Enterprise Society, in which we'd run a business. And I was kind of like, I'd always kind of had that kind of entrepreneurial sort of like, oh, there's another way that you can make money without having to have a job. So that had kind of always kind of been there, but I'd never done anything with it. And I was just like, well, I could do that and see what happens. And so that's what I did. So on Monday, I was made redundant. By Friday, I'd set up a business just offering graphic design to small businesses. And I literally started with, well, let's see what happens and see what goes on. So now it's been 4.5 years. I'm still running it. So yeah, so that's how I got from there to there. So
wow,
yeah.
See, this is what I mean about this podcast, and you know, my events that I do and the books that I do. And I know you show me a strong woman and show me her story, because every single woman has a story to tell, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And so you start the podcast and you're sitting down and you're all smiley and friendly and this is what I do. And then you start to dig down and you realize that the story to get here is just amazing. I mean, what really shows me, I mean, I am one of those people that it's what we call the tower moment, right? So that when your hand is forced, basically, like the universe, whatever you believe, is saying, this is just, you've got everything out of this that you possibly can. And so it's time for you to go. And you're not listening. So let's kick you out the nest and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
And see if you fly or fall.
Exactly. It's just like, let's see what happens here.
Absolutely. But of course, the other wonderful thing, and I've said this to a lot of people, because the wonderful writer Teresa Chung said this to me once, and I love it. I give it to everybody. Life, when you're in it, is, and you're like in the thick of it, is like a tapestry from behind, and it's here, and it makes no sense. It's like knots and frays and tangles, and you're like, what am I looking at? Hindsight lets you turn it over and step back, and what you realize is how everything is interconnected, and it's all this beautiful picture of your life. And for you to go on that journey, right from like your degree to where you are now, and everything that you've learned, everything that you've experienced, I mean, it really has been for you to bring you to the place that you're in now. It's like life,
exactly.
like massive life school, and you've really been, and you've graduated, and now you're in this place, and it's beautiful. I think, and kudos to you for being brave enough to take those leaps, because so many people wouldn't. So many people would still be in that event management thing all these years later, just trying to make it work, right?
Exactly.
And you're brave enough to just go, let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was very much, and I kind of live my life by it. It's just like, if I was on my deathbed, would I regret anything? And I think it was at that point where I was just like, I would regret not trying it and seeing what happens. And like, yeah, okay, it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to work out, but I'm glad that I did it. So
yeah, sure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
so, yeah.
So that's the thing, and that's another word that the two words that I don't tend to say, so I'm going to say them with air quotes, sadly. One is should. We don't should on ourselves around here, because it's a horrible deal. The other word that we always say with air quotes is failure, because I don't believe in it, right? I think it's all lessons and experience that are moving you forward.
I agree with that 100%.
And so, and I think a lot of people don't take those risks because the brain kicks in of the what if, right? But you just don't. I'm not saying that you're fearless, but you're certainly coming across as somebody that has a titanium spirit, kid. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's either fearless or just like, oh, we're just gonna leap into the abyss. Absolutely fine. Should be okay.
Is it fearless, or is it kind of just a ballsy? I don't know, maybe it's a bit of both.
Exactly. It's a bit of both, really.
So obviously this huge journey, and it sounds to me, from what I'm kind of picking up, is that being a woman in those industries and then becoming a mother in those industries also gave you a fresh set of challenges.
It did, yes, definitely.
And so I suppose the question is, and this is not a question that I've given you, or a question that I've been written down, but hey, this is where we roll. Do you think, realistically, and I say this as a huge staunch feminist, do you think that these spaces are changing, and do you think there's some hope in there for the creative people to have, the creative women to have more kudos and more leadership and more opportunities in the industries now?
I would say not yet. So there is a lot of talk about it. I've seen a lot of talk in these industries about making it a space for women and making sure that they are supported in those industries. But it's just, I think it's not there yet. There are certainly discussions, but that's as far as it's got. It's never got off the table. It's never actually got into a practical, well, let's see and let's try it. And I think that's the biggest thing with these industries, is that they're too scared to try and sort of go, let's see if this works, and if it works, amazing. If it doesn't, let's go back to the drawing board and we'll try something else. And I think that's the biggest concern, is that they kind of want to learn what it is and get it right first time. And life is not like that. Life is like miniature failures, first of all, and you learn on the go, and then you go, this is what's going to work. So I think there is more conversation about it, which is really good. I've seen loads more conversation about like flexi working, which I know that Mother Pucker does a lot about that, in terms of like flexi working. Pregnant and Screwed do a lot of campaigning about how they need to support mothers and things. So there are lots of people out there that are shouting about it. It's the way that it's now the action that we need to take. It's like, we need to take it off from the discussion point and all of the kind of things that people go, oh, well, this may not work, and these are all the excuses that it might not work, and kind of go, well, we just need to try and see what happens. And that's
the thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I was thinking about it the other week, actually, because I mean, the modern world that we live in is obviously great in a lot of ways, and technology and Zoom and social media, there's a lot of good things about it. But I was thinking, do you remember back in the day? And I'm of a certain age, and I admit that readily. My son said to me this morning, "Don't heard this song, Mum, in geography. It's really old." And I went, "I heard that song in the cartoon show when I was a kid. So you're saying that I'm really old?" And he was like, No. I am. But in the 80s and the 90s, it felt like creative people had more opportunity to get it wrong, and now and to learn and like people weren't immediately dropped. Now it's like, you've got to be a hit off the bat, or we won't bother with you. And somebody who's worked in publishing with writing and books and stuff, like, they're so not willing to take a risk. There's so like
Yeah.
that's why you've got to have like the subscriber numbers or the you know social media numbers, because they need to know that they've got the readership, they've got an audience that are going to buy the book. And it's whilst I get it to some degree, there's a part of me that's like you're missing out on all these creative people,
You are.
especially women who don't get the breaks the same way.
Yeah,
Who
100%.
straight away you've got a huge hurdle to climb over.
Yeah, exactly. And you're missing you're missing a voice in your workplace, basically. Somebody that's going to represent those ideas and thoughts and go, well, I have an idea and this is what will work for me. If you don't give them the opportunity to do that, you're going to miss that voice. And that could be sort of almost, for some businesses, that could be the make or break of that business. If that is the one thing that they are missing, but they have stopped all the women from getting into their positions so that they can actually have a voice and talk about it, then that could be an end of a business thing for them. So it's really important that we give women those experiences and we give women the opportunity to go into these positions, especially the positions of either managerial leadership, all of those ones where there's decision making, and especially for mums as well. If you've ever met a mum, which you know because you are a mum as well, we are really good at making decisions and making decisions, really hard decisions and negotiating is like, we're top level negotiators. So why wouldn't you hire us? It's just like, have you tried negotiating with a toddler?
And time management, I can manage the hell out of time. Like, give me an hour, you'll be amazed at what I can do in an hour.
Exactly. But you're kind of cutting all of these things off, and it's just like they are actually. And the thing is that when, like, especially when I went back to working in employment as a mum, then like I was much more focused, because I was just like, I've only got X amount of time, and then I'm going and I'm working this amount of time, and so I was much more focused. I was much more sort of in tune with what's happening, and those are the kind of things that you need in a workplace. You need those kind of people in there to make that workplace diverse. So
absolutely. I also think it's important that we recognize that there's women. It's a kind of can be a sensitive subject, but women, it's not enough. We need to make sure that we're bringing to the table women of minorities as well, of different races and cultures and faiths and beliefs, so that everybody's got a voice. It can't just be women who look a certain way, because and almost buying into that patriarchal view of what a woman should be. Everybody's got a voice, everybody's got talent, everybody's got a story in their own way, and it's important, I feel. You know, if I say this all the time, if one woman is oppressed, then we all are. That's the thing. So it's important that we make room for everybody, not just those that fit the mold.
Yes, exactly. Everybody should be allowed to. I've just started like a free sort of like WhatsApp group to help like female entrepreneurs with their personal brand and sort of getting them more confident. And one of the things is somebody put on the group, they kind of went, I just run a small business. I was like, please remove small out of that. Please take up space. So and it's things like that, and it's little small things that you just don't realize. And I think it comes from society. It's systemic. We're so used to being told how to act, how to think, what we should wear, what we shouldn't wear, where we should work, who we should work for, how far our career should go. We've been told all of this from pretty much from birth all the way up to adulthood, and so it's really hard to kind of break that mold, to kind of go, no, I don't want to do that. And so it's also kind of like empowering women as well. If somebody just kind of goes, you should sit at the table, then that's so much empowerment there to sort of go, I fit here. And when women do that, they normally bring several other women with them as well. It's just like, we're not the kind of
absolutely,
exactly. And I think women think differently, and how they lead differently is that they don't look at it sort of like, I'm on the top dog. And obviously I'm doing a generalization here, because like obviously I know there are male entrepreneurs and there's male business owners and male managers and things that don't do this as well. But quite often, like the male managers will ultimately, it's like, this is me, I'm on my own, I'm top dog. Whereas women seem to kind of bring a little bit more kind of community spirit and kind of the more leadership side of things, and sort of like, if I'm coming up, then you guys are coming with me as well. So it's a lot more sort of that full kind of community, rather than just I'm top dog and that's as far as and that's who I want to be. So definitely a different way of managing, a different way of leadership for women.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I was just thinking, it's like when you were saying about when women bring others with them, and we're seeing it in the media at the moment, that when one woman has the strength and the courage to stand up and share her voice and her story, it gives the others the courage, I suppose, and the empowerment to also speak up. And so you know, as women in business, I think it is important that we take those chances and we don't play it safe, because you're inspiring those around you without even realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we need, is that we need more women to take up that space. We need more women to go, actually, I have a voice, I have a story, I want to tell it, and go for it. So yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously with the work that you do now, and it feels like obviously you've been doing it for a while now, and obviously it's going really well. It's great. So what do you think are the biggest challenges faced in the work that you do right now? Have you found that it's brought a whole new set of things to think about, shall we say?
Yes, definitely. So my business predominantly works with female entrepreneurs, and I specialize with working with female entrepreneurs. And like we were speaking about before, the biggest challenge is ultimately getting women to understand that they get to choose what their identity is. I think, as I was saying before, that we get our identity is kind of chosen for us, but as soon as you start a business, then suddenly it's like, well, you have carte blanche, what do you want to do? And I think sometimes in that situation, it's that overwhelm of, I've now been given like full authority to be who I want to be, what do I do? And I think some people kind of embrace it and kind of go, yeah, let's run with it. Other people are like, there is way too much choice and I need help. So that's ultimately what I try and do with my clients, is sort of sit down with them and really go into sort of who are they, and who are they truly are, and what do they feel comfortable and confident. Because with the work that I do, is I'm not creating somebody brand new, and I'm not creating a brand that's kind of brand new, shiny, and this is what you should be. It's very much stems from the core of who that person is, and then it radiates out and it publicizes it, and they're in control of what they put out there and what they want to keep private. And that's very much how I sort of do my branding services, and also when I do personal branding as well. That's what I'm focused on, is I'm focused on them being confident and comfortable about putting themselves out there, because that's ultimately what you need, especially when you're a business of one. You have to put yourself out there, and you've got to be comfortable about going out there and telling your story and talking about yourself. And that can be super scary if you're just like, I don't know what it is, I don't know whether I'm going to be oversharing a bit too much, am I going to be saying too little, is somebody going to have a go at me because I've put out a belief or I've supported something and they said like, that's not you, that's normally not you. It's all of those things, those feelings. And I think for female entrepreneurs, and especially women in general, we get those a lot more because we get judged a lot more. So it's much harder for us to kind of put ourselves out there and kind of go, yeah, this is me and this is what I want to be. So I very much kind of work with women in terms of learning about that side and just understanding that it's just like, yeah, you can take up space. Yeah, you can have an opinion. That's no problem at all. Yeah, you can say what you want to say. That's no problem at all either. And just kind of giving them that kind of space, and also giving them the permission. Sometimes you need the permission to sort of go, yeah, you can be whoever you want to be. That is absolutely fine. You don't have to look like everybody on social media. In fact, I embrace more be different. Don't be like everybody else on social media. Just do something different. Find your unique you, because ultimately you are unique. You're the only person in the world that has had the same experience, those experiences, that knowledge, those skills. It's only you. So be unique, be different, put yourself out there. That's fine. And also giving them the resilience as well, because we all know there are trolls on there. There's always trolls under that bridge. They're always going to be coming across, and it's giving them that resilience to go, you know what, I know who I am and I know what I stand for, and I'm quite happy putting that out there, and whatever you're saying, I could not care less. So it's giving them that kind of control and that resilience to sort of put themselves out there and not listen to all of the other negative feedback and just continue going. So that's kind of the biggest challenge that I found. The other biggest challenge that I found, which I don't talk about very often, is actually in my industry at the moment. It is very quiet. So for the last sort of 6 months, and I've been speaking to like a lot of designers and brand designers and strategists, we've seen it being very quiet. And obviously we all know this is to do with cost of living. It's all to do with priorities and things. We completely understand this. This is all the kind of things that we know. And we ultimately know that what we do as a business is things that when a female entrepreneur kind of looks at that, or even any entrepreneur looks at it, it's kind of like, we can kind of do that in-house for a little bit. We've got Canva. And so there's other things out there for them. So I think that's been also a big challenge as well, is learning about that, and almost starting to get comfortable about the fact that it's sort of like, okay, there may not be proposals going out, there may not be people coming in. That's okay. which has been a fun learning curve when you're sort of going, where's the next person? And I think it's one of those ways, sort of like, I run a business, but where is my business? I can't be a business owner. And you have all those kind of like those thoughts of sort of like, am I really a business owner if there's nothing happening? But there's lots of other things that I've been doing. So as I said, I've started like a free group to talk about personal branding. I do lots of branding chats with people. I go out and network. So there's lots of other things that I'm doing. It just doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be getting the projects and things yet. And it's kind of one of those where I've kind of sat with it and sort of gone, oh, this is kind of strange, to the point where I'm just like, well, we'll just keep going until something happens. Absolutely fine.
Yeah, it's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I've been registered self-employed now for 5 years, but I've kind of been doing it as a side hustle for 13, and it's so like, it's a wonderful thing. And I definitely say to a lot of people, I couldn't go and be an employee anymore. I just couldn't, because I'm too rebellious at this point. But it is a complete roller coaster, and it's never fully like, okay, well, this is it now, and this is where we're at. No, it is learning, like you say, to roll with the punches and the change in time. And at the moment, we're in such a space of transition. Not only as entrepreneurs, but as a collective, as a humanity, as a society. Like, there's so much changing. You know, we talk about women in business. First of all, we don't have a lot of role models. You know, a lot of women, they are the first entrepreneur in their family from their female line, right? So, like, we're learning on our feet here. You know, it's a baptism of fire. Second of all, social media. Like, my mom never had social media. My grandma never had social media. That is a whole baptism of fire. And then, as on top of that, the cost of living crisis that we're in, like, it's just mad. And so every day now, I think it's important, anyone listening to this, if whatever your career status is at the moment, is to know that it's changeable right now, and it's okay, because everybody's in that place right now. And regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or if you are an employee or whatever your status is, you're in a period of flux, and we all are. And that it's kind of like, well, it's not great, but we're all having to just flow with it as much as we can.
Exactly. It's just like, we're just going to have to stay on the boat and just ride it out, sort of thing. And I think, especially, like, I noticed when the pandemic hit, like, marketing people, so branding comes under marketing, is part of marketing, and every marketeer suddenly had to throw all of that data, all of that information, all of that background that they've been doing for so many years out the window, because the pandemic completely changed the entire landscape. And so even they were kind of flying blind. And I knew that, like, when I was going into like different forums and things and talking to different people, everybody, like, especially right down into the lockdown stage of the pandemic, everybody's going, I have no idea what's going to go happen. We don't know how people are going to react. We have no idea how to market things anymore, because people are different, and it's completely different. So it is in a massive flux. And I think sometimes it's nice to have that flux. I think sometimes when you've been going along so far and you've got it sort of almost kind of, when you get these kind of like massive shifts, it's quite interesting to see those massive shifts as well, because suddenly you start questioning things like, do I really want to do this, or what do I want to do, or where do I want to go, and how do I want to do this? And it gives you that period of time to sort of go and sit down and sort of go, well, while everything's kind of a little bit chaotic up here, what am I doing, and what do I want to do? So then you can go back out there and just kind of be yourself again. So I think, in a way, even having those challenges, it's a really good way of sort of sitting down and going, well, what are we doing next? And that's something that I've especially found, especially because it is quiet at the moment, is that I can sit down and sort of go, well, what do you want to do, and where do you want to go, and what kind of strategy do you want to have, and what do you want to do with this business? And it's given me that opportunity to do that. And also it's given me the opportunity to try things out, which is the biggest thing that we were talking about, is giving a chance to actually try things out. So I've tried multiple things out. Some of it pretty much of like really hasn't worked. I'm like, oh no, that doesn't work at all. But it's given me that opportunity, whereas I think if I was always constantly busy and I was running the business and I was growing the business, and I would not have that chance. I wouldn't have that chance to sort of test things out and move things around. So you kind of have to look at it in that way.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I remember, I mean, my previous life, I actually was a high school teacher. That's a whole different, that's a big book in itself.
That's another story for another day.
It really is. But yeah, when I started we had got a new head teacher, and he was very kind of transformative, really. He came in and radical. He said, if you're still here in 5 years, I want to know why, because you're not ambitious enough. And you could feel the younger people in the room that were kind of newly qualified were kind of like, oh, great, cool. Whereas the older, more old school who've been there for years were like, oh, God, right? Like, suddenly it's changing it up. But I think you should.
Yeah.
you know, for me, lockdown was very, this whole business model that I have now was born out of that. Because when I was in lockdown, obviously having the children and doing homeschooling, which again is a book in itself.
Yep.
But I was also, you know, still trying to do the business, and so I was doing the online tarot readings and just trying to, and that's what people needed at that point. But it
Yeah.
came to, once I got to the end of lockdown, I never wanted to do a tarot reading ever again. I
Yeah.
still do now, but I don't. I thought I've got to change this up, and from change, something beautiful can be born if you allow it, right?
Exactly. Yes, definitely. You've got to allow it. And I think that's also, as well, it's listening to what feels right. And I think there is so many people that's like, you have a gut feeling, and I use gut feeling quite a lot when I'm running my business. And it's sometimes there is no explanation, there is no data behind it, there is none of that. It's just, I have a gut feeling this will probably work, and so you start and you try it. In which I think a lot of people, again, it's one of those things where you, if you're trying to get it right first time, you won't listen to that gut feeling. And so
it's like you're trying to put yourself like a cookie cutter. It's like you're looking at other people and going, well, that works for them and that works for them. So how can I take this and copy it? And it's like, it's not about copying it, because you're not them.
No.
They're not
you.
Exactly. So finding your way of doing things. So that's really key.
Exactly. And I think that's a lot what I kind of talk to my clients and the people that I talk to. Is like, it's being yourself. It's like, it's all right with all these people. You see it a lot on social media where it's just like, and I've done it before, it's just like, these are the things that you do with branding, and these are the things that you do with like to get marketing and social media, and these are all the hit points that you need to do. These are all very general stuff, and I do tell people, it's just like, the stuff that I'm going to be putting out on social media, it is going to be quite generalized, because ultimately that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be talking to quite a few people, but when you sort of work one-to-one, that's when it gets much more specific. That's when it gets to the point where we're doing it for your business. And it's when you look on social media and go, oh, I should really be doing that because they've said that I'm doing that. It's just like, but that was for their business and that worked for their business. Your business model is completely different. The way that you run your business is completely different. So what might work for them? Yeah, okay, take it, try it, see if it works. It may not work for you. So don't feel so hung up if you're going, I'm going through all these steps and it's not working. It's just like, but it probably wouldn't work for your business model anyway. So it's having that chance to experiment and learn, and just realize that what everybody else says is happening and working is not always the case. It doesn't always happen that way. So
exactly. And again, two things. One, we're shitting on ourselves again, which we're not doing.
Exactly. We're not.
And secondly, we always have to remember that the majority of people, I mean, I try to be authentic online, and if I'm having a bad day, I'll talk about it. But the majority of people online are showing you the highlight reel. So they're not going to show you that things are not going well and they've had a failure. They did fuck up, because why would they want to put that out there? They're going to show you the shiny success. And so if you're just looking at other businesses or other entrepreneurs and you're like, oh, it's great for them, everything's going well, and you're like, you don't know that. They're just showing you what they want you to see, right?
Exactly. And it might be they're putting out loads of stuff and it's like, this is lovely. They may not be getting any clients either. They might be like, this is nice. So it's all the show, really. And it's learning, and it's knowing in yourself and being confident in yourself, going, I know the direction that I want to go in. And I know the way that I want to grow my business, and I know where I want to go. And just being quite happy just going along that route, and just and I know people say like stay in your own lane, but really just stay in your own lane. Just do what you want to do. Don't look at what anybody else is doing, and just keep going that way. So
exactly. I mean, ultimately, we are our own biggest competition. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be about everybody else. I mean, I used to say like, comparison is the thief of joy is the quote. And I think comparison is good if it inspires you in your own life, and you can go, oh, they're doing that, oh, I'd love to do that for myself, how can I do it in my own way? That's great. But if you are looking at them and you're feeling crap about yourself in comparison, that's not healthy. Like, I've really tried to streamline my social media as well, so not just what I'm putting out, but what I'm also taking in from other people. Because if somebody's not inspiring me and motivating me in some comparison, why do I want to give my energy to them?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I always said, I've said it in my socials as well, is that competition doesn't exist. So a lot of, we talk about in marketing, we normally talk about a lot of competition. What I actually say to people is like, there is no competition, because how can you have a competition where you're competing against somebody who has different experiences, different knowledge, different business, runs the processes completely different. I know there's thousands of brand strategists and designers out there. We are completely different from each other. We have different ways of creating things. We have different styles. How can you create a competition? That's not fair, because the two different. So what do I say to my clients is that all you're doing is you found somebody that has just found their space. They found their space, they found their position in their industry or in their local area, and they're owning it. That's all that's happening there. So there is space for you as well. So we can find that space. We know we can make that position. So they're not competition. They've just found their little space. They're quite happy there, and they're doing their thing. So I'm very much competition doesn't exist, because it can't. You cannot have a competition where there's so many different variables. It doesn't work.
No, of course not. Absolutely. No one's starting at the same place, right? It's like I'm starting on chapter 2 and you're starting on chapter 11, and I'm looking at you going, why are you so far ahead? It's like, well,
exactly. Yes, there's a big gap. There's a massive gap of things that have happened in between, like chapter 11 and chapter 2, that you just haven't got there yet. So exactly.
So in terms of you and what you do, and I've got this conversation that's just been so juicy, I love it. But in terms of you and what you do, what are your your goals and your own dreams in your own business for what's next?
So my big dream is that the business is the #1 branding agency for female entrepreneurs internationally. That is the aim. I know that is the aim. So it would be a place where female entrepreneurs, and like from right down at the bottom, so the grassroots, so when they're just kind of starting, going, I have no idea what any of this stuff is. So helping them right from the bottom way up to the top, where they are sort of sitting on these big funding panels, on leadership roles, they're keynote speakers, right up to the top. So supporting them all the way through sort of their entrepreneurial journey, and helping them with their branding, helping them with their identity whenever that kind of changes. Because I say to my clients, it's like, you will find that as you go along, your brand will flux and it will change. Absolutely fine. That's normally what happens. Usually what happens, you go for a rebrand when you're going up to like the next level, and you're going, I want to go for a bit further, and I want to be a little bit more in depth, so we up level it a bit. So it's always going to change. So it's making sure that that supports all the way there. And it's been international as well. So my sort of big vision is ultimately having a business in Manchester, business in London, business in the US, business in Asia. And so it's sort of a global thing, and helping female entrepreneurs globally with this, and helping female entrepreneurs globally embrace their identity and embracing their true identities, rather than creating one, rather than sort of going, I need to be like this. Is like going, no, be yourself, and learn how to be yourself, and learn how to be confident being yourself. So that is very much the plan for the business. That's where it is going.
Love that. And it's such a great takeaway. Be yourself, learn to be yourself, and be confident being yourself. It's such a great takeaway for all of us. We say, regardless, if you're watching this and you're like, this has been a really interesting conversation, but I'm not there, take that message, regardless, into your life. It's like, you are who you are, and you're supposed to be who you are. So just be confident in that space. And but also know it's the journey. Like, I look back 5 years ago, and I'm much more confident in many different ways now than I was back then. But that's because I've learned, and I've had failures, and I've had lessons.
Exactly.
It is a process, it is a journey, and who knows where I'll be in 5 years' time, and that's okay. It's all growth. It's all good.
Exactly. And I think, I can't remember who said it, that they gave an example in terms of when you're a baby and the baby falls over and they're learning to walk, you don't, as soon as they fall over, you don't tell them off for doing it wrong. You go, come on, go back up again.
Exactly.
You don't do that. And it's like, and then somewhere along the line, in between being a baby and becoming an adult, then suddenly it changes, and suddenly everything has to be right first time. It's like, if you look way back, it was just like, we were always learning, we were always failing at something, and we have to pick ourselves up and go on again. So that's very much sort of, I know that, like, I say to people that I fail on a daily basis, because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm trying stuff out and going, yep, that didn't work, so let's try again. So that's what life is.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree. Okay, Eve, this has been such a wonderful, I knew it would be. As soon as you came out, we can have a good chat, and here we are. So it's such a great conversation. For anybody who is interested, and obviously I'll put all the links down here, but just anybody who is interested in finding out more about you and what you do, or potentially working with you, where can we find you? Website, socials, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. That is the only social media channel I am on, which I am Katie at Keppel Leopard, and my website is www.keppelleopardcreative.com. And that's
fabulous. Watch the end of this and then go. Don't run off now. Just wait until we finish, then you can go.
Yeah.
Katie, Katie, thank you so much, my darling.
No
You are just an
problem.
absolute powerhouse, and I really hope that your big dream comes to fruition, because I could just see the passion that you have for what you do, and I feel like all of that experience, all of that skills, it just, this is like really who you are and where you're supposed to be. So long may it continue.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome to chat to you, and I have now sort of like realized in the last couple of years that everything that I've kind of wanted, I've got. So I was just like, well, obviously I'm going to get this now. So I'm very much on that vision of, yeah, that's just going to happen. It's just when.
Awesome. Oh, told you, she's a powerhouse. I love it. I love it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this podcast. I hope you found it as inspirational as I have. And tune in for the next one. Give this channel a little subscribe so you don't miss any. And I will definitely see you next time. Lots of love. Bye.
See you.